Well, welcome back, everyone. So after our last episode, we decided to film or record something for the FCS season that's coming up in the spring. For after 2 straight years of failed pro football leagues in the spring, we have some FCS football for 1 year only. And Mark, do you have anything to say about the upcoming season?
I think it's an interesting concept because it's like an FCS program, especially, right? I mean, I assume most of those programs profitable? Do we know? Do you have any idea or no?
I think they are. I think some like the best teams are profitable, like James Madison or North Dakota State's. The HBCUs for sure are profitable because year in year out, the MEAC and the SWAC lead FCS in attendance every single year. And some of that's because of like the neutral site games that they play, or
Okay.
They just play in large stadiums.
Okay. Well, I think that definitely helps the cause. So if they're already profitable, like think about it from the perspective of like a pro football league, it's like your goal is to like make money ultimately, right? And so it's like the failure on those parts is like primarily due to the fact they can draw eyeballs, they can generate revenue, right? And so it's like one, if you have FCS, which one, you don't really necessarily need revenue to begin with, in the sense that it's like if you're a college, yeah, it's like helpful, I guess, to produce money, but at the same time, like your goal is not to like create revenue, right? A college's goal is like not to, make profit from this, right?
Yeah.
But and so that eliminates one aspect of the already failure on the part of the professional leagues. And in the second aspect, if you already have established brands that have established like fans coming to your games and like established programs, like I see no reason why the FCS isn't just gonna like be incredible, like in terms of like potential ratings, in terms of potential like even like growing like interest in the league. Like if you have this on at a time when there's nothing else on, people may watch that and they'll be like, oh, this is actually like a good product. We like watching this. This is cool. And maybe they'll stick with it in the future. I don't know.
I think the one thing it'll be kind of tough during March Madness, because everyone's eyes are going to be on the tournament. But in like Saturdays like this, where you have like a normal college basketball slate, you might have like on one screen a college basketball game, another screen a college football game. Which that might be something I might do next week for Tarleton State versus McNeese.
You're talking from a point of privilege, all right? Not everyone has two screens, okay?
Okay, well, I see your point, but yeah, you might like flip channels around and like say have the game on Fox for like cord cutters like myself who will be a future cord cutter. You might have a game on Fox and like on your laptop put on a game from Stadium who has the rights to Patriot League games, which is a free over the air channel. So really some options this year for cord cutters and everyone alike. But this year we saw some teams come out of nowhere, particularly San Jose State and Ball State, the two teams in the Arizona Bowl, who ended long conference championship droughts and really beat the odds, because I don't think anyone saw any of these teams winning the conference or even like their division heading into the year. So do you see, before I name some of these teams, do you see like a sort of similar thing happening in the FCS level where teams have like this window due to just the circumstances of the pandemic?
Sure. I think it's interesting. It's like at the Power 5, Group of 5, like kind of FBS level, like there's definitely the issue of there's not as much parity. I think in the SS level, you're already you have more of that parity. And I know you may discuss it a little bit, but it's like if you have teams that are not necessarily, you don't have like an Alabama, right? Everyone kind of has that chance almost every year. So I think yes, in the sense that it's like, but yes, in the sense that the pandemic does create new opportunity for the teams this year, and also in the sense that there's more parity to begin with. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think at the higher level, the situation with parity is a lot worse in FCS than it is for FBS, arguably, because who's at the top? North Dakota State. Like North Dakota State has won almost every title since 2011, except for like one or two. And okay. I don't think it's healthy for FCS. But if you look at the sort of micro level with individual conferences, there's a lot of parity in a lot of conferences, whether it's conferences getting multiple bids. Like I think the Missouri Valley Conference had 4 playoff teams last year, 3 or 4 out of their 12 teams, not out of their 11 teams, excuse me. And a conference like the CAA, which constantly has teams cycling in and out of the playoffs, whether you have like, I think a couple years ago, Maine went all the way to the semifinals unexpectedly. And then who else in that league? Like New Hampshire in the past has been a power out of the CAA. James Madison, of course. But the most, I think, glaring example of parity is the Patriot League, and not the Ivy League, which in 2016 had an opportunity. 2016 had an opportunity for a 7-way tie, 2 weeks in the last 2 weeks of the season, which ultimately did not happen. But it just shows like the parity due to the similarity of those schools. Same thing kind of happens in the Patriot League, where like the Ivy League did not give athletic scholarships until recently. I think the only school now to not give athletic scholarships is Georgetown, the Hoyas. But there's still that parity because it cycles in and out. Like there's hardly, and it's kind of been a problem. I'm gonna put a link in the description of this one for an editorial titled "What's Up with Patriot League Football," because it's in 2017, and shoot, I didn't write this down, but in 2017, I believe Lafayette had a 5-6 record and made the playoffs out of the Patriot League. It's an automatic qualifier, and they had a Colgate team that was 7-4 that year, and the year after, yes, you had a really elite Colgate team, which Marshall and I were talking about before, a Colgate team that had 5 shutouts and allowed 33 points in 9 games against FCS opponents. Probably one of the greatest defenses of all time in recent memory. But that's sort of been the exception. And it was Lehigh. Lehigh went to the playoffs with a 5-6 record in 2017. And then this past year, Holy Cross went to the playoffs with a 7-4 record. But they really weren't that elite of a team, and they got blown out in the playoffs by Monmouth out of the Big South. So it just kind of cycles as to what teams are good and what teams make the playoffs each year. And I think the pandemic helps that with the Patriot League, because it's a 4-game season in the Patriot League. You have 2 teams in your division. It's going to be a championship game. And before I talk about individual teams in the Patriot League, do you think having a championship game increases the chances of parity, Marshall, or do you think just having, I guess, conference standings determine it do that, like increase parity? I want to know your thoughts.
I think, it's really tricky because it's like, I'm thinking about this from the perspective of like statistical outcomes. Okay. So it's like, if you have like a conference slate, I suppose parity in the sense that it's not the same team at the top, right? So in that sense, I assume that like more randomness in the games would allow for more parity to ensue. And so but at the same time, I guess I don't know. It's tricky because it's like think about it from like college basketball perspective, right? It's like you have your conference slate, and so you get your like regular season champion, and then you have your playoff of like the conference itself. And it's like from that perspective, I guess more games introduces more randomness equals more parity. So like the regular season slate. However, it's like for college football, it's like you get the best team, I guess, would be in there at the end, and they'd have a better chance. I don't know. I guess it would have to be the regular season, just due to the effect of more games introducing more randomness into the equation. But I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know if it really makes that much of a difference, because it's like if you're North Dakota State, you're probably going to win either way. But it's like if you're in the Patriot League, it's all up for grabs either way. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
So I think maybe the better question is to ask like whether it, I guess, dilutes the quality of postseason play coming from your conference, because the way I look at it, like this past year, for example,
Sure.
with Northwestern and Ohio State, and Northwestern certainly had their opportunities to beat Ohio State throughout that game, but you end up with the possibility or the outcome of a Northwestern team that, yeah, they're 7-1, but they're clearly not the best team in this conference. And really, while they beat the best teams, the metrics say Ohio State's best team, and Ohio State might not have come to play or whatever. You know, those sort of things come out where you don't have the best team representing you in the postseason.
Right.
In that case, it's a different scenario, given it's like bowl games where like Northwestern probably would have ended up in the Fiesta Bowl or something, and Ohio State also would have been in a New Year's Six Bowl. But you look at something like, we'll say the Patriot League, since that's the conference we're on right now. Say Holy Cross goes undefeated, goes 4-0, and they face out of the South Division like a 2-2 Bucknell team, which we're going to talk more about Bucknell, and in a conference where the gap isn't as big as it would be, say, in like the Big Ten between division champs, Bucknell, a 3-2 team. I mean, in fact, we had that problem in the Pac-12 where Oregon didn't even win their division and they won the conference title game. And clearly, USC would have been the better team representing the Pac-12 in the Post.
I don't know about all that. I don't know about that. Look, like usually, like sure, I like have a bias against USC just because I don't like them randomly. But I will say I don't think it was like it's as clear as you are making it sound that they were better.
I kind of think it is because one of Oregon's losses was to 1-2 California.
Okay.
Like a 1-3 California team. That I think that's all.
I mean, let's be real here. Like USC was losing to Arizona State by like 3 scores with like a quarter left. Like they came back obviously and won like by the fucking skin of their nutsack, dude. But it's like, it's like, like come on, like it doesn't like say like great things about their program that they had to do that. Like, I don't know.
Okay. I see your point, but I think if you ask a room of, I think the metrics kind of had like USC being the better team too, because okay, yeah, sure they slipped against Arizona and Arizona State, but against I'm gonna pull up their schedule too. Actually, against Utah, I know for sure they played dominant against Utah. Who else? It's kind of tough because like the Pac-12, it's like the amount of games they played was kind of strange and who they played.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have the Arizona and Arizona State games where they clearly weren't the best team there. But against Utah, 16-point win. Against Washington State, who had their flashes, 25-point win. UCLA was all right this year, 42-38. But I mean, you compare that to Oregon. I mean, I just think USC was definitely the better team. And in that case, Oregon, I wouldn't say got lucky, but under the law of any given Saturday, anyone. Of any given Saturday prevail.
Here we go.
That can happen in the FCS this year.
Look at this. So in terms of EPA per play over the last college football season, USC was ranked 34, Oregon was ranked 37. USC had 0.052 EPA per play. Oregon had 0.045, a difference of 0.007. Okay, EPA per play, 0.007 is their difference, right? These teams are basically equivalent. They were equivalent essentially in EPA per play, okay? Their records a little bit different, obviously, but come on, it's not completely unfounded to say that they weren't basically the exact same team.
Okay. So I'd hate to say this cop-out that I hate from the CFP poll, but eye test. And I'm sure the eye test matters to the casual fan. Okay. To the
eye
casual
test.
fan.
Give me that eye test when they're losing by 3 scores to fucking Arizona State. They didn't win almost a single game almost.
All right. Okay. Well,
come on now.
I guess going back to our main topic, you can have, with the conference championship games happening for almost every conference, you can have the same discussion that we're having right now as to whether the better team is representing who in the playoffs, you know, especially the FCS playoffs. And I guess we'll start with the Patriot League, where I guess with the topic of windows, like San Jose State having their championship window be this year, same thing with Ball State, their first conference title since '96 for the Cardinals. I think a team that could have a window could be Bucknell. And like I mentioned with the Patriot League having like a cycling, I think the Patriot League, the best description or the best comparison to FBS is the ACC Coastal, who had, so you take the ACC Coastal, they've had 7 champions in 7 years from 2012 to 2019. Yeah, 2013 to 2019. They've had 7 different champions. You insert Notre Dame, they win the Coastal Division, or not really the Coastal Division, but they go to the ACC title game. Kind of shows you how open the ACC Coastal is. Same thing with the Patriot League. It's not as bad, but it's pretty much always open each year. So Bucknell, they're in the South Division with Lafayette and Lehigh, who both had losing records last year. Lehigh went 4-7, Lafayette went 4-8, and Bucknell went 3-8. So one of those teams is going to go to the Patriot League championship game with a shot at the playoffs there. And last year, Bucknell lost 21-17 to Lafayette, but beat Lehigh 20-10. And in the North Division of the Patriot League, you have Fordham, Holy Cross, and Colgate. And they have Fordham and Holy Cross divisionally. Fordham went 4-7 as well, 4-8. Fordham went 4-8. Holy Cross, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the Mighty Crusaders went to the playoffs. and they lost to Holy Cross by a touchdown, but lost to Fordham 31-14. I mean, with all that being said, Bucknell can easily beat both their divisional opponents, have tiebreakers over them, lose one of the cross-divisional games, and skate into the Patriot League title game at 3-1. And you know what? That would be huge for Bucknell, Marshall. I'm gonna pull out some facts that might just drop your jaw. So despite being 20th all-time in FCS wins, their program started in the 1880s. One notable alumni, Christy Mathewson, Hall of Fame pitcher for the New York Giants, for baseball historians like myself. That's a huge name, and that's who their field's named after, the great Christy Mathewson, who died as a result of mustard gas poisoning after World War I. It just lingered with him, and he died in the 20s. So 20th all-time in FCS wins. Do you know when their last postseason game was? When this program's last postseason game was?
Maybe like the 70s?
No, the 1935 Orange Bowl against Miami. That was the last postseason game for Bucknell.
Was it 1935?
1935, yes.
All right. Was that even recorded? Like, is there even any, like, did anyone even write down the final score of that game?
I think Bucknell won that one 20-6. So they're undefeated in the Orange Bowl, which is a lot more than a lot of teams can say. So that was their last. They've had good seasons. That was their last postseason game. But since then, they won the Lambert Cup for the best lower division Eastern team in 1960 and 64. But they only have one conference championship to their name, the 1965 Middle Atlantic Conference, which was a college division, which was the equivalent of FCS in Division II. 1997 is probably the year that longtime Bucknell fans they toss and turn, and I think, because that team went 10-1, but their only loss cost them the Patriot League title. So instead of 10-1 Bucknell going to the playoffs, 7-4 Colgate did, because they had a tiebreaker over Bucknell, and Bucknell didn't even win a share. Like they went 5-1 in the Patriot League, and Colgate went 6-0. So granted, there is I think while there's less room for error, there's less that teams have to do to earn a shot to the playoffs, like Bucknell. And I think that's a storyline that people could look at, because I think the Patriot League, for historians like myself, history buffs, I think the Patriot League's your league, because you have so many old programs that appeared in the big bowls. You have Fordham with the 7 blocks of granite, the iconic line that they had in the Patriot League with Vince Lombardi, a couple NFL players that are escaping my head right now. You have Holy Cross, which I grew up 10 minutes away from, why I'm wearing this hoodie. You have the Crusaders, who also appeared in the Orange Bowl, actually lost the Orange Bowl in 46, I think, on a last-second pick six. Very heartbreaking, but also boasted a Heisman finalist in the 80s. And then you have Colgate, too, who had a 1932 team that's still known in the annals as the uninvited, or the unscored upon, undefeated, untied, unscored upon, and uninvited Colgate team, because they had their bags packed, expecting a Rose Bowl berth, and they weren't invited.
Wow.
Just like me, was not invited to start a relationship. So I gotta put in the jokes.
Down bad.
I am down bad, but all jokes aside, yeah. So I mean, if you love history, and then of course you have Lafayette and Lehigh, you better believe I'm gonna be watching the Lafayette Lehigh game when it happens this spring. That's probably the best rivalry that people overlook every year. So again, the Patriot League, amidst all the history, that's a storyline to look for. Another conference, I kind of want to know your opinion on the MEAC. Do you think in the next couple of years we'll even have the MEAC exist as a conference, Marshall, before we start talking about your situation this year?
Okay, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a MEAC expert, okay? So I got these teams. So I have the list of teams, right? I guess I don't know why they wouldn't be a conference. Like, maybe you're going to have to teach me a little bit about this one. Like, what's the controversy there?
Okay, so pretty much there's been a mass exodus. It started in 2018 with Hampton leaving for the Big South.
Okay.
Then NCA&T, which if you casually watch HBCU football like myself, which means probably like the Bayou Classic and the Celebration Bowl, the only HBCU games you watch a year. You know about NCA&T winning 3 straight, 2017, 2018, 3 straight Celebration Bowls, and you probably know about Tariq Cohen having an absolutely stunning performance in the inaugural Celebration Bowl in 2015. So you probably know about NCA&T. They left for the Big South as well. And then this past spring, you had Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman, who have a rivalry every year called the Florida Classic. And I'm pulling out a book from my bookshelf to sort of drive home the Florida A&M, this book, Breaking the Line, kind of explains the brand that Florida A&M has been in Black college football since the 60s. Really great book called Breaking the Line. I'll put in the description. So you're down to 6 teams. You have Delaware State, Howard, Morgan State, Norfolk State, and North Carolina Central and South Carolina State. And the minimum you have for a conference in FCS is 6 teams. And the Big South recently lost a couple teams or a couple football playing schools to the Atlantic Sun. So I think any day now you can either have the Atlantic Sun or the Big South purge the MEAC, putting the conference in jeopardy.
So what happens like if like the conference gets disbanded? Is there FCS independent? Is there like do they have to go somewhere? What do they do?
So it's either independence or they join another conference. And with some of these schools, there's like good landing spots in terms of like football. Like for Delaware State, they can probably join the Northeast Conference. And I think the Northeast Conference is courting them too this summer before those rumors subsided. Morgan State, same thing. Howard, probably the same thing. They'd be a great ad academically for any conference. Maybe even the Patriot League, if anything, because they're a good research institution. And but the Patriot League, they're kind of a snooty bunch, you know. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties for a second.
I think that's me. I think I accidentally am muting you. What the heck?
Yeah,
I'm trying to mute. Can you hear the background right now? Is there?
Yeah, there's not much of a background. I can hear like some light sound.
It started to get some noise in the background. I wasn't sure if you could hear it, so I go to mute myself. And somehow I'm muting you. I don't know what's with that.
Yeah, well, I guess to rehash the point, I think I left off on, the Patriot League being a snooty bunch in terms of Howard. And then you have schools like Norfolk State, North Carolina Central, and South Carolina State that are easily in the Big South and Atlantic Sun's footprint. The Atlantic Sun's trying to start football in the next couple of years, and they have 5 members right now. They need 6 to start a conference. But the one caveat is they have aspirations for FBS football. So I don't know if an HBCU will want to be at the FBS level. So just a little background on the MEAC, and I think you can already see this year with like the drop in quality in MEAC play, because the best team, there's only one team with a winning record returning to the conference this year, South Carolina State at 8-3, and they're doing the divisional thing too, like the Patriot League. And get a load of this division, Marshall, the MEAC North. You have Delaware State, who went 2-10, Howard, who went 2-10, and Morgan State, who went 3-9. And one of those teams is going to have a 50-50 shot at a conference title when it's all said and done. So that'll be another storyline to watch. And because as most casual fans know, the MEAC champ plays in the Celebration Bowl, but a lot of these teams really have not had a good time lately. Like you take Morgan State, for instance, they've had 2 conference titles since '77. Their latest one came in the wild 5-way MEAC tie of 2014, which I think maybe we should do a podcast on that. That's absolutely insane. Norfolk State has a 1 playoff appearance since 2011, or a 2011 playoff appearance. Delaware State has a 2007 playoff appearance, and then Howard has no playoff appearances since 1994, and that goes for like the Celebration Bowl as well. So definitely a storyline to follow as well. And HBCU football full of tradition. So I think. So Marshall, I want to go back to the conference championship discussion. Do you think the MEAC should be having a conference championship game? I mean, because you look at the MEAC North, like, do you really want one of those teams to upset your undisputable, like, arguably best team and represent the MEAC in the playoffs?
Well, I mean, I guess with that one, like, how do you decide who's the champion? Like, do you just pick the best record?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough too with like COVID, you know, but I feel like you don't want, I mean, I think divisions are good for COVID mitigation, and, you know, excuse me for wanting playoff quality over safety, you know, forgive me really. But I think you got to do what the ACC did and make like a regionalized schedule and have the 2 best teams, like the 2 best like teams in the state, because it's only a 6-team league. If the ACC can figure it out with 15 teams, I think the MEAC can figure it out with just 6 teams in a 4-week schedule, because literally the divisional schedule is every division opponent plays each other twice, and that's that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, I guess at that point, then it's like if they already have played, well, Also, I guess easy to say now because last year they were so horrible, but it's like, what if there is a team that emerges good from the North, right? I mean, it's like then
Yeah, yeah,
you might want that matchup. I don't know.
yeah. I think
I
out
guess
of this
I would err.
bunch,
I guess I would err on the side of like, yes, there should be a championship because let's say like they're all like the equivalent of last year's teams. They're all like 2-10 again or whatever, right? I mean, obviously not with that many games, but they're the equivalent, right?
yeah,
And then it's like you put them up against a good, was it South Carolina State? Like they'd probably just get absolutely just like drove into the ground, right? I mean, it's like
yeah.
I guess it's like there's a chance of upset, but I feel like if the difference is like that big, there's not really a worry there, and so you might as well have one. But at the same time, you're like reserving yourself the upside of in case there is a good team that emerges, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying like maybe like the method they choose conference champions would be better off like the ACC and the Mountain West doing the top two teams in the league, because with the Mountain West, I guess it would have still been the same like divisional format. If they would have chosen divisions, you would have the same matchup with Boise State, San Jose State. With the ACC, kind of tough to tell with Notre Dame in the picture, but I would assume Notre Dame would be in the Coastal, and you have the same matchup. With here, you have the potential of like blocking out, maybe like Norfolk State, who went 5-7. They have an all right 4-game stretch, and they go like 3-1. But that one loss is to like South Carolina State. When on the other side, you have 2-2 Delaware State, just like barely scraping by, or potentially 2-3 because they play Delaware in sorry, what's this? I gotta see what this rivalry is named again, against Delaware, against the University of Delaware, the Blue Hens. Sorry, you're gonna have to give me a second. Oh man, geez, my calendar's sticky. Okay, well, the Delaware State rivalry, the Route 1 rivalry. So they might end up with a losing record in the conference championship game due to one non-conference game. So it's like, do you want to block out a Norfolk State team that is clearly better than their cross-divisional counterparts, just because you sub divisions,
Yeah, I guess it's like truly there's just like no winning with this like few games. It's like you just kind of have to pick something randomly almost. So I would say like have a championship because why not?
Yeah, I mean, revenue, I guess.
Yeah.
Championships are cash grabs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Out of the MEAC, I must say I will be rooting for Howard with no playoff appearances since '94. With Delaware State or Morgan State being a close second or third, I'll just be rooting out of someone from the MEAC North. Out of the South, I think North Carolina Central trying to win the MEAC for their first title since 2016 when they played in the iconic Excessive Celebration Bowl, which was a celebration bowl that was decided on an excessive celebration penalty, ironically enough. So that would be something to look out for. And I think the last conference that has sort of a window, these weaker conferences in FCS have more parity, it seems like, because the NEC, they're defending champions, Central Connecticut State. This is like different than the other two leagues. Central Connecticut State went 11-2 last year, and they're flat out not playing the spring season. And Robert Morris, the second best team, is now in the Big South after in all other sports they joined the Horizon League. So you have 6 teams in the NEC, 3 of which have never made the playoffs. So half the teams have never made the playoffs, and they'll also have a title game, but they're doing the conference standings thing, it looks like, because there's no divisions in the Northeast Conference this year. So I think 2 teams that are of note are the Bryant Bulldogs in Rhode Island, who went 4-8 last year. They have games against Long Island, who went 0-10, and Wagner, who went 1-12. So that looks like 2 easy wins right there. And they have a game against Merrimack, who's in their second year in FCS, went 6-5 last year. Same thing with Merrimack. Merrimack plays the down bad pair of Long Island and Wagner, and they had that game against Bryant. So the Merrimack Bryant game could be one of the more important games in the FCS spring season, as it could lead one of these teams to the championship game and closer to a spot in the playoffs. But again, could be a small window there in the Northeast. So I want to know your thoughts here too. Like, you think a team like LIU or Wagner should just hang it up for the spring season? Like,
I mean, it's like if New Mexico State didn't, like, why should they? Like truly, like it's like truly, like if you're just like playing games and it's like if you're never like a championship contender anyways, you might as well just play your games. Like, it's like at that rate, it's like if your question is, are you going to try and win a championship, or are you just not going to play? It's like, well, then that's a bad question, because you're never going to win. Like, not that you're never going to win, but it's not like you're, they're not North Dakota State, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're just, they're fielding a team, they're playing games. Like, not to say that it's purposeless, but like the purpose is to play. The purpose isn't necessarily like to win or to like have a long season.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess with this, because like there's really not much discussion on like the Northeast Conference. Like the contenders are there. There's going to be parity in the Northeast Conference. Like also too, I missed on is like Duquesne. Duquesne went 6-5 last year. They made the playoffs 2 years ago. And also Sacred Heart out of.
Oh, we're having a hard time. We're having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, as I was saying, Duquesne. You have Duquesne who went 6-5, also playing in the Northeast Conference, and you also have Sacred Heart who went 7-5 last year. So you have two solid teams. So those teams appear to be front runners out there in the Northeast, but really not much discussion. I want to ask though, do you think sort of these teams playing shortened seasons and kind of making the playoffs, I guess, with less of a tougher road, naturally playing less games, so less room to screw up. Do you think that cheapens the FCS playoffs this spring, or do you think it'll be like a cool experience with a lot of parity and a lot of new faces that you otherwise wouldn't see?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be the latter. It's like if there's different teams than there traditionally are, it's just kind of cool. It's like how you had a bunch of new teams in the, Division One, not playoff, I guess technically. No, that sounds weird to say, Division One playoff, FBS playoff at least. That sounds weird, but it's like you did have new teams in the top 25, and that was super cool. As someone who doesn't follow FCS as much, I don't think it's like a huge deal to me either way, because I wouldn't really know. Like if I like as a casual fan, like I wouldn't be there and say, oh, I see a few new teams in there. Whereas it's like if you see, Marshall, and then you see Eastern Carolina and you see Liberty right in the top 25, you're like, oh, I recognize that they're not usually there. So I think it'll be cool for existing fans, I think, that are like much like more familiar with the landscape of the FCS. But I mean, it doesn't really move the needle for me. It's like I will probably end up watching their games, right? Like I think it's cool they have spring games. I think it's cool that they'll be one of the only things on TV. I think it'll be a great thing in terms of viewership. I think that'll be cool. But in terms of the landscape overall, I'm not sure it'll make a huge difference necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sentiment shared too, because I just pulled these numbers off just a day of research, and really the only league I follow is the Ivy League in terms of FCS football, and unfortunately they're not playing this year with the Patriot League being close second due to the academic profile of the schools and just growing up watching Holy Cross football. But I mean, it will be interesting, I think, just seeing these new faces and knowing that this team has not played in the postseason for a while, or like it's their first postseason appearance. Hopefully the games will be competitive. I think that might be revealing too, because the way that it seeds, like the FCS tournament seeds things like the basketball, like the men's basketball, or not men's, but the basketball tournament, where the strongest seeds play the weakest seeds, and that might expose some teams that might be very bad. But I mean, who am I to say now as to whether that will happen? So yeah, no, I mean, I'm pretty excited too, and I think just these stories too, like such as Bucknell, for them to finally get their first postseason game since 1935, if that happens. I'm just going to say right now that this might be a desperate plea for more viewers, but if Bucknell makes the postseason for the first time since 1935, I think I'll have a girlfriend this year. I just freezing cold takes.
Yeah, you never want a girlfriend, do you?
Freezing cold takes. Write that down. If Bucknell makes the playoffs, I think I'm due for a girlfriend.
Well, I mean, it's gonna be like it's like one of those things where they say it's like hell has to freeze over, but then you're gonna have to have like two of those things happen. It's like, oh boy, that's a tall order for the man upstairs.
Yeah, I mean 86 years is a long time, but
what's longer, 22 or 86?
I'm 21. Okay. Don't add an extra year, but
my bad.
Hey, I mean, if San Jose State, you saw the list I was compiling, after Kirk Cousins brought the "You Like That" back. If San Jose State can go 8-0 for the first time since 38, I think this is very possible for Bucknell to go to win a conference championship game and go like 4-1. I
Sure.
think that's very possible.
See, at first when you were saying that, I was a little scared. I thought you were going to say, "Yeah, it's very possible for me to get a girlfriend," and I was going to have to be like, "Omar, look, this is not a fictional like podcast where we talk about stories where we want what we want to happen."
All right, man. All right. Hey. All right. I think before I take any more damage, I think it's best that we soon. Before I take damage, so
I will say something interesting. I just saw here I guess a month ago. Tony Romo in the 2021 College Hall of Fame class. It's kind of interesting, but
okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, he put up some numbers out there for Eastern Illinois. Congratulations to him. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's good for sure. Of course, I had to put in your Cowboys point for the day.
Yeah, I mean, I am a Tony Romo fan. Don't get me wrong. I don't know how. I feel like it was helpful to be like a very successful NFL and announcing career in order to get, because it's like, yeah, it's because it says here like Eastern Illinois star Tony Romo, but it's like I feel like that same year there was probably other people that were bigger stars. I guess I don't know for sure, but
I would agree and you just have to look at who announced that he was in the Hall of Fame. Jim Nantz. Like, I mean, come on,
It's funny, but anyways.
Yeah, like until next time, unless Marshall has any more roasts for me.
Well, I mean, if you do that, we can be here another 2 minutes.
I think we'll cut it off now. Then until next time, we'll see you, and peace, love, and soul, everyone.